Hello, friends, and welcome to 10 Points Under Delta Force Style. This is Big a Bullfrog, and joining me today is not newcomer, what's the opposite of newcomer? Regular. Chris Perkins. Welcome, Chris Perkins.
Hey, thanks to be back. I'm not entirely sure if I'm a newcomer or a regular at this point, but either way, it's nice to be here.
Yeah, no, it's good to have you on. I'm always glad to have you on. It's always good to talk Heroscape with you, and especially with this game, we've got a cool format that probably I'm just gonna jump into really quick here, just because it is a cool format, and I want to make sure we've got time to do it justice with what we've got to say about it. So, um, we've got a game. This is the first game that I'm recording so far. It might be the first game posted. I'm not sure. Probably will be the first game posted because I usually post in order of recording. But anyway, so this is the first game from the Delta Duels online Heroscape tournament. Basically, they used a Delta point system. If you don't know what that is, we'll talk about that. Basically, Doc, I think, was the main one. Doc was the main one. Had a couple of people giving him input on stuff, but basically he went through all of the figures in the game, classic and VC included, and he gave them all new point costs. So basically that means he went through everything, he readjusted points, and then the tournament was just, I don't think it had any other special rules other than that, right?
No other rules, just the altered point versions, which, I mean, by itself must have been a tremendous undertaking. Like, that must have
Oh
taken
yeah.
Doc just forever to do. So, big props and thanks for the time that, he put into actually making all those changes, because I can't imagine how long that would have taken.
Yeah, same. It was, I'm sure, quite the effort for him. But just as a couple of quick examples, really quick. So he just changed point totals. So a couple examples of things that I'm pretty sure people viewing this will know. For example, Raylan the Carry Warrior. The first one, she's usually 80 points and is pretty good at 80 points. So she went up to 115 points. Another example, Death Reavers. Are usually 40 points. They went up to 60 points. That's an increase of 20 points per squad. And we've got the same thing going on with these armies, which actually, now that I'm looking at them, all of these figures increased in point cost. So we've got up here in the north, we've got, let's see, this is Vydar is the man. He's got 4 squads of Knights of Weston. They went up from 70 points to 85 points. We've got Sir Gilbert, who went from 105 points to 130 points. And we've got Morgan's Rifleman, which I believe went from 60 to 70 points, if I'm remembering correctly there. And then in the south, we've got one, two, three, four, five, 6 squads of Warriors of Ashra. This is Vegetarian18. 6 squads of Warriors of Ashra from 50 to 55 points. And then we have got Q9, everybody's favorite Q9, who went from 180 points to 230 points. So a nice 50-point increase for Q9 right there.
Yeah, a lot of the better, like the top-notch heroes, really got their points seriously jacked up. I mean, fairly, of course, but it certainly altered your army building quite a bit. I think one of the biggest things that I noticed about army building was that a lot of the really good helper figures, like Raylan and Rats, really saw quite little playing time. Just at the higher point totals, there usually just wasn't quite as nearly as strong of an argument for, say, adding 2 squads of Rats as there normally would have been when they're just so cheap. Especially when a lot of the other good figures were taking up more points to begin with. You just had a lot less points to play with. And I think that one of the common themes throughout the better armies in this format was that they went heavier on the number of squad figures they were throwing in instead of having those extra fillers for quite high points. Almost all of the playoff armies and the armies that performed well had at least 4 to 6x of whatever the core common was. Which definitely ended up being quite strong. But it was a really cool way to sort of relook at the whole cheese format when nobody had a clue what was going to be the strongest army going in. So basically having no restrictions except for the altered points, allowing really a huge variance in armies. Actually, I think that the Knights army that we're seeing Vydar as the man here play was one of, if not the only, duplicate armies that was submitted. So there was just a whole lot of variance in the armies that were fielded, which was really cool to see.
Yeah, it was really interesting going in it. I did a little bit of brainstorming for this one because I was maybe going to play in it. I didn't end up playing in it, but basically, I felt a lot more like, to me, kind of like a bring what you want, and kind of let the points figure themselves out. At least that's how I kind of went about when I was theoryscaping what armies I'd go with. But you can, I mean, you've got the Knights army, which is just solid. Knights are always just good. You do lose out on some points, but you're still just going lots of Knights with Gilbert, and in this case, you get Morgan's Riflemen instead of something like Morrow Warriors, which went from 50 to 90 points. And I think 100 points after the event. I think Doc bumped them up even more.
Yes, I believe so as well. Although this is one of the armies where I think the drop-off was pretty severe, though. I mean, Morgan's Riflemen are certainly viable and good, but the gap where after you lose the first Rifleman versus after you lose the first Morrow Warrior is just quite large. So that's sort of an interesting spot. But I think that was one of the more painful drop-offs, especially like for the Knights army, but just in general across the board that armies were forced to make to fit the point totals.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, and then I also really like this bunch of Warriors of Ashra and Q9 approach. I think I laughed a bit when I saw it, but also I was like, that seems like it'd work pretty well. Oh, and it did. Both of these armies worked pretty well. Both of these players pretty good. This is the quarterfinals game, just so that everybody's got a little bit of context there. Quarterfinals game. So, yeah, pretty good players, and this will be some really good gameplay. Looking forward to it.
Indeed.
So let's go ahead and jump into it without further ado, and see how things go off going in. And actually, while we're watching these opening rounds, or just like opening moves, Chris, what do you think? So we both know who won this game, but just looking at the matchup, looking at the army construction, which army would you give the edge going into this?
So I think that going into it, I mean, it's pretty close because both armies really have two major components to them, and they both sort of alternate, with the matchups that are good. The Morgan's Riflemen are quite good into the Ashra. The Ashra are quite good into the Knights. The Knights are quite good into Q9. Q9 is quite good into the Morgan's Riflemen. So there's a lot of sort of really, really cool back and forth. Not really like any one figure that's just outstanding. Like both armies really have two components that are very intertwined in terms of how good they are.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I would probably give an initial edge to Veggie's build, just because it's a lot easier to kill one or two riflemen than it is to kill Q9.
Right.
And in terms of the ranged war happening sort of behind the screen of melee as they move up, I just think Q9 is just such a better figure there, that if the Astra can hold up reasonably well against the Knights, which they should be able to for a while, if Veggie can get one or two riflemen killed in the early game, it would really make it tough for the Knights to have to chomp all the way through all those 18 Ashra sitting there with their happy melee defense.
Yeah, 18 Ashra, putting it like that kind of puts it into perspective there of how many rolls Vydar is going to have to, basically how many blanks he's going to have to draw out of the Warriors of Ashra, minus the ones that he's able to kill with.
It would certainly. Although in terms of the glyphs, I think Wanik is a little bit better for Vydar in general. It's a little bit less painful to put a wound on Gilbert than it is to put a wound on an Ashra or Q9 even.
Mm-hmm.
So Vydar certainly got a little bit better answer to Wanik, especially if there's a few rounds in the early going where he can't hold it. I'm curious to see if either of them are able to use Zawit well and get value out of it. To me, it's a glyph that I just haven't seen used a whole lot. I think it's more difficult to use to the best of its ability than a lot of other glyphs because there's so much unknown going into when you jump on it. Like if you aren't ending the round, if you want initiative that round and you jump on it, you can get shot before you can use it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do use it to move somewhere else, you don't know if you're going to win initiative or not. So it can be kind of risky. Like how big of a risk do you want to take when jumping on it? And I guess just for any viewers who don't know the glyph, the general idea behind it is that at the end of the round, you can teleport yourself anywhere on the map that's not adjacent to any other figures. So you can just hop off that space and wherever you want. So you can certainly get around opponent screens that way. But again, if that may lead you to somewhere that's not on height, and then you risk taking a lot of shots if you lose initiative and being quickly killed. So it certainly can be beneficial, but there's just a lot more variables that go into it that I think make it a lot harder than, say, jumping on Wannick or jumping on the movement glyph.
Yeah, I agree. I'm wondering if it'll even come into play, because I think I don't know. Being able to teleport at night, for example, would be great if you can, but it depends on what's open. Just as a quick example there, I actually recorded a game. It's not posted yet, so Chris wouldn't know about it yet. But Zawit was also on that map, and a player used Zawit to, for example, teleport into the back of his opponent's start zone and start hitting his reinforcements there, which worked out pretty well because at the time the player was split between order markers, and so he was able to catch some figures unawares as the opponent had to focus order markers on. Well, I guess didn't have to, but chose to focus their order markers on a different figure on the front lines. So it's got some uses there. I do think just with this matchup, I think it gets better the more hodgepodge the armies are. I guess is what I'm going with there.
Okay, interesting.
Because if you can catch your opponent off guard like that and split them between order markers, I think that's pretty good. Or even move your own figures if your figures have gotten split up and you can bump a stronger figure or something like that into a more key location. I think that's pretty good. I just worry with this matchup where you've got all your order markers on one or two figures, and it's going to be pretty clear which one's going to be doing what at what time. I don't see a ton of use for it, but I could be wrong.
Well, we'll certainly find out. It'll be something to watch for as the game progresses. See if either figure or if either player gets a season opportunity to try and have their figure jump around somewhere. Mm-hmm. Although, while we're talking about Zawit, we've seen the first attacks. Somewhat predictably, I'd say. You've got both melee components clashing over the Wannick glyph. Certainly going to be a big part of this matchup, given the lack of Markus or any comparable figures to soak up Wannick hits. Let's see, a decent symbols roll here from Vydar. One more than average.
Mm-hmm. 3 always feels pretty good, I think.
You're rarely going to complain about 3. For sure. So we see just pretty much, as the knights spreading out as much as they can. What was a very nice and pretty line along the base of the height. Just sort of trying to keep as many of those knights sort of clustered together as they slow roll. All it looks like here, Vydar is choosing to use a couple of those free moves on the rifleman, which makes some sense. Wanting to keep up the ranged component with the melee screen. That way you don't have to invest in the order markers on them. Kind of similar to how Knight's 4th played, especially in the earlier sort of meta of Scape when that was a more common army, something like Knight's X2, 4th X2 Gilbert.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I kind of missed that army. I liked Knight's 4th. I thought that was pretty fun.
It's an interesting build. I mean, it's anytime you're running a common at 2x in a cheese type meta, it can be a little bit tricky and risky, but it's certainly an army with packs a lot of potential. Mm-hmm. So we just see sort of tons and tons of knights being thrown towards the center of the map here.
Yeah, it's a nice wave of steel coming down.
Oh, and an early whiff from an Ashra.
There you go. Just got to do that 17 more times.
Much easier said than done. That looks like the roll for Wannick. I would expect that an Ashra would be killed here instead of Q9.
I'd imagine so, yeah. Unless Veggie's really feeling comfortable in the Ashra screen and doesn't think Q9 will get hit, which I don't think he's I don't think he'd be that confident in it, especially against knights where 4 or 5 attacks a turn, that definitely has every potential to turn things pretty quickly.
Even if we just sort of compare the delta points to lives, so if the Ashra at 55 points, so a Wannick onto an Ashra is a little over 18. It's 18 1/3 points. Q9 at 230. That's 57 and a half points.
Wow.
For every single Wannick wound that you're taking at the Delta points. So that's a pretty painful Wannick place to put those wounds.
Dude, that's more than a squad of Ashra.
Yes, that is correct. That is more than an entire Ashra squad. So I'd say it's sort of over round one, thanks to Jandar's dispatch. Vydar was able to get a lot more of their figures thrown out into the center than Veggie was, moving up to 8 per turn instead of 3 Ashra. It's really made a big difference in terms of the early board state.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like Veggie's staying pretty heavy on the Ashra again this round.
I'm guessing probably wants to grab a few more key locations, get up some stronger defenses. Looks like just making a nice little landing spot for Q9 right here, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I would certainly agree. That very much seems like the intention of leaving that spot open. And Q9 can get there in one move, which is good. Although that ruin is definitely not helping out Veggie a ton. This Q9's not going to be able to see a whole lot there once he's plopped down behind that giant ruin.
That's true. So if Vydar comes in this way, he'll be pretty okay. He'll just have to reroute these forces, or just keep them slightly in reserve so that they're not getting plinked while they're going for Wannock.
Yeah, I'd say one big benefit though of that spot where it looks like Veggie's planning on putting Q9 is that he can Queglex onto Wannock from there. Mm-hmm. That's exactly 6 away. So I'm sure that was intentional, but that's definitely a big benefit of that spot. If Q9 could somehow force the Knights away from Wannock, that would be a massive help for Veggie in this matchup. Let's see, I think that was all the Ashra that are moving this turn. Oh, nope. Oh, looks like there was one. Okay.
All right.
On the Wannock, and it goes through.
All right.
So both armies have lost something now.
Blood on both sides. Which is good, because as unique as it would be to watch a game where nobody loses a figure, or like where one person just doesn't lose any figures, that would also be kind of feel super bad for the other player.
Yeah, that would be pretty rough if that were to happen. A complete and utter sweep. Definitely not something I've seen before.
Like, I feel like I might have maybe might have heard of like a game. Actually, you know what? I think there was a game in our Utah scene where there were wounds inflicted, but it was like one of the armies was hero-centric, and so they didn't actually lose any figures. And but I mean, it was a super polarized matchup anyway. But
gotcha.
Definitely felt bad for the other player though.
This is an interesting map. I've played on this map once or twice. I think just in practice games. I don't think I've ever played on it in a tournament setting. I mean, I did play in this event, but I had a bye in the round that this happened, so I did not get a chance to test out this map during the actual event itself. There's a lot of line of sight blocking, which makes some sort of that early positioning of your ranged figures a lot more important than it can be on some more wide open maps. Definitely a map that flying figures are quite happy to see. Obviously, we don't have any of those here. It can take a while sometimes to get your melee figures up into the center on that height. It's a long ways both forward and up to get there.
That's true, yeah. I like the map. I like to play on it, but you're totally right from the games I've played.
Like, I think just if you look at the number of spaces that are at height 4 and at height 3, I'd say that this map has a lot more spaces at those 2 elevations than most other tournament maps end up at. Like, most maps that have height 4 only have like 6 or 8 spots of it, and not a ton more 3 either. So it's just a little bit different map in that regards, that there's just a lot more of that height in the center. And Q9 hops up into that spot we were expecting, trying to see if he can see that knight.
I'd imagine so. The edge of the ruin drops off pretty quick there, I think.
But it looks like their decision was no line of sight. It's tough. The knight actually also has a shield
That's
that's
true.
sort of
Yeah.
poking out in just exactly the right spot. Those types of line of sights are just so hard to figure out online.
Yeah.
It can be a real test sometimes to figure those out. Ooh, a rifleman order marker.
Ooh,
That's
interesting.
something. That's a change up. See where they want to hop to.
He'll probably be able to get some pretty good shots.
I'd say that the big trick here for Vydar is just trying to make sure that they're placed into spots where Q9 can't return fire.
Right.
Because any Q9 Quiglex into Rifleman is just going to annihilate them very quickly. So both of these spots so far are pretty nice in that they are avoiding Q9 being able to return much fire. Pretty safe spots behind the night screen. Be difficult for Veggie to get anything there to attack, and that's a nice roll, you could say.
Yeah, yeah. I would imagine that Vydar is pleased with that roll, to say the least.
I would hope so, certainly. And let's see if they can take out any more.
Another one. This is a really good order marker. That was. Yep.
Wow, 3 of them. Yeah, that's quite an effective turn.
Yeah.
You take that whenever you can get it, for sure. And so now Q9's got a hole in the screen in front of him. So Veggie's got to be a little bit concerned about that. Yeah, and sending an Asher pretty far forward just to make sure Knights can't charge in and get adjacent to the big guy.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then
I would guess fill in.
I would guess.
I would think so. Trying to see if there's any other good spots to send an Ashra.
Yeah.
You can't get any up onto the 4 height. Filling the other hole next to Q9 has another advantage too, in that it's able to get to Wannock within 1 move as well. So it's a nice staging area. If Veggie wants to try and contest Wannock at some point next round, it's a nice little staging area to block Q9 for now and then move forward.
Leaves it open.
Okay.
Maybe.
Reconsidering. Or not.
Okay.
So I think that the major argument for that spot is just that the rifleman can't shoot at it.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
is nice.
And that's what I was going to say. Like, this spot is great for like blocking off knights and going for Wannock and overall potential, but it's also super vulnerable to the riflemen if they took another order marker. So I mean, I wasn't sure what I would do in that situation.
So this is interesting. I think that when the new spot Gilbert's at, he can't see the knight on 4 height on the far right.
Mm-hmm. I'm guessing so.
And if he had stayed, though, that knight with the 2 symbols that just rolled would have been able to get adjacent to Q9.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure why Gilbert moved up there. I'm trying to see what maybe he gained the ability to see.
Part of me wonders, and this might just be me projecting myself onto Vydar, but I know one thing I do is, or a mistake that I make when I'm using Gilbert is just getting antsy and feeling like I need to move him up a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe because I'm not really seeing a ton that he gains by moving up. That he can by just waiting a couple turns.
I think I almost certainly would have left Gilbert back and tried to throw that knight into Q9. I mean, 2 symbols isn't that unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
Average, you're going to get it 2 or more majority of the time. And given that you're ending the round here, you get at least 1, if not 2 shots onto Q9 if you win initiative. And you tie him up pretty well in that he can't attack Rifleman.
Yeah.
Let's see. So Vydar instead goes for the transport cliff, which is I like that move here as well. Your knight might die, but if you win initiative, again, you can get him adjacent to Q9. And that's huge.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think you could have gotten an extra knight there if Gilbert stays 1 space further back. And I don't think Gilbert gained line of sight to anyone that used it by moving up.
Yeah, I don't think
At
so.
least not that I know. At least not that I noticed.
Yeah, I didn't catch anything there.
That's certainly a nice spot to hop to for that night. So we see two d20 rolls. What I'm guessing happened was that the first d20 was to figure out which action happens first, the Wannick or the Zowit,
Oh, that makes sense.
because they're both at the end of the round. I mean, it's pretty unlikely that Wannick is gonna hit a 1, but technically you would roll first to see which end of round action would occur first. Kind of similar to if you had Wannick placed on a lava space, which most maps don't have for good reason. But if you did, the situation can arise. Let's see, we've got Veggie splitting the order markers here between Ashra and Q9 and winning initiative, which is definitely big, able to avoid that knight being able to move into Q9.
Yeah.
As we see a couple Ashra move up to fight that knight. I couldn't see the top of the... So Vydar's got at least 2 order markers on knights. Might be 3, but I'm not sure. I wasn't able to see before it scrolled past.
I missed it too.
Okay, so Veggie sends all 3 up, but the first attack goes through nicely. So much for the Zowit attempt that round. And if you're Veggie there, you can really move all those Ashra up without any fear of them getting shot at this round by the rifleman, because you're basically 100% certain that Vydar put 1 on knights. Because if Vydar won initiative, you want that knight to be able to get adjacent to Q9 that you've used Zowit for. So this is a pretty safe opportunity to, at least for 1 round, be pretty sure that those Ashra aren't going to get shot at from range. Let's see where the knights decide to go to. You could still get a knight. The same knight on the right side 4 hex snow. You could get a hided shot down on the Ashra if you wanted it.
Yeah.
I think the most important thing that Vydar can accomplish here, though, is taking out that Ashra in the center of the board that's tying up all those knights and stopping them from advancing.
Yeah, that one is being a pain.
This Veggie may have another order marker on Ashra, but at least one of the 2, if not both, that's left is on Q9. If they both happen to be on Q9 and you could kill that 1 Ashra right here, you'd really have the whole center of the map freed up for the rest of the round, which would allow you to advance a lot more freely through the center trying to reach Q9.
Yeah, if he can pull that off, that's huge. And I mean, like, if that Ashra just keeps average defense rolls and just gets 1 out of 3 for a good little while, man, it's gonna be really frustrating.
And so this time Vydar does back Gilbert back up so that he's able to see more of the figures with dispatch, and I definitely like this move. There's just not a lot. There's just no real neat reason to have Gilbert being too far forward here. You're never going to be realistically using him for the attack buffs. Like you're not winning this game by getting an extra attack die on Ashra.
Right.
It's just basically irrelevant.
Feels bad, but it's irrelevant. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the number of dice you're throwing at the Ashra is not the important factor in terms of whether the Ashra die. Let's see. Moving up onto height around the far side. It's a nice spot where Q9 can't see him, and Ashra would have to be attacking up. And at least 1 attack on the Ashra.
Okay.
Or, sometimes maybe you just do blank with 4 dice.
It's true. It happens.
Okay, I take it back. Maybe Gilbert would have made the difference. Maybe that 1 out of 5 would have killed the Ashra there. All right, so maybe Q9. Hindsight's a useful tool. So it is on Q9 here. Q9 can certainly see the knight on Wannick.
Oh, wait, what?
Is Veggie interesting?
Interesting. Advancing to take shots at riflemen? Yeah.
Just the 1, because I think the others are out of range.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, but
just barely out of range.
I mean, but he gets the 1, and that's pretty huge. Now, Vydar's ranged component is almost crippled at that point, being down to 2/3 strength. I mean, it's still decent going into the Asher, but that was a very, very nice turn for Veggie there.
Yeah.
Especially with the Wannick Knight just being the icing on the cake.
Yeah, 2 pretty nice skills there, and order marker on the rifleman.
Yeah, this is really big for. This is very, very positive run out for Veggie. Those riflemen are probably not shooting at Q9. They're both their job is to shoot Ashra. Probably to shoot at that Ashra in the middle of the board who's tying up those knights on the 3 and 4 height. I'm curious what Veggie's intention is now on the last order marker. I would guess either if it's on Q9, he probably retreats back. And if it's on the Ashra, they can advance to form up a better screen around him in the new heighted spot. So I'm definitely curious to see how that plays out. I'm thinking Q9 might want to stay in the new spot just because there's so few things he could see behind that wall.
That's true, yeah. And he can fill in those gaps. I mean, he's the knight has height on him, but Ashra, like we said.
Yes. Yeah, the Ashra are certainly good at that. And we'll see if either of these riflemen are able to take out that central Ashra figure. 3 out of 3 will.
Ooh.
Oh, wow.
Will not work. Dang.
Some hot dice rolls from both players there. And another one.
They're 3 out of 3, 0 out of 3. But why wasn't he attacking up there? And again, hindsight, if you know you're going to get 3 skulls, of course you attack up. But
yeah,
I think you should attack up anyway. Just with how much it's blocking or tying down right now.
I think I'd probably agree with you there. Especially, so it depends a lot. Maybe I don't remember. I never saw if there were 2 order markers on the rifleman or not.
That's true.
If order marker 3 is on the rifleman, then this makes a lot of sense. But if order marker 3 is on the knights, then I definitely agree. I think shooting up at that Asher is more important, just because you're able to get so many knights in around Q9.
Right. Yeah, that'd be great.
And now, as it stands, Q9 can really stay where he's at much more confidently because that Asher in the center is still there, meaning there just aren't a whole lot of knights who can get there. The 2 knights on the right certainly could. But I think at some point you just have to sort of be willing to bite that engagement. I mean, you want to avoid it if possible, but I just don't think there's a lot you can shoot at if you retreat. In fact, I'm not even sure you can shoot at anything if you retreat. That single glacier height in the middle might be blocking line of sight from Q9 from his old spot.
True, yeah, Q9's head is in a weird spot. Okay, Interesting.
So this, I like this. I like this move. This makes some sense to me. 1 knight can still engage, but only 1. And either way, you're shooting up. So the knights have height on defense in either world. And this way, there's only room for 1 knight to have engaged. So I think that's a nice little spot for Q9 to back up to. Minimize the risk as much as possible. Taking 1 knight instead of 2.
Yeah, I definitely like that.
And I mean, most of the time Gilbert gets at least 1 on dispatch, but if he happens to get 0, then no knights can get to Q9. Is a nice little bonus. But again, that's not going to happen all that frequently.
Right.
What is it? I think something like 11 or 12%, but I don't remember. Some
of a blank.
Yeah, here I'll check.
Oh, interesting.
Speaking of since Veggie's game, I'll highlight Veggie's app while we're at it.
Oh, yeah.
Checking the math on this. Actually, I don't know if the app can do that. Maybe I shouldn't have brought up the app. Well, either way, if you aren't familiar with the app, there's an app called the Sterilizing Pair, which was created by Vegetarian18, which is very useful for doing a lot of the basic math and calculation probabilities for a bunch of different attack defense situations. It's got some really cool abilities to throw in powers like Tough or Vanish or Stinger Drain and stuff like that. That's all sort of pre-calculated in, so that you can just check those boxes to figure out what the odds are of actually doing wounds. So if you aren't familiar with that app, you should definitely check it out. I know it was available on Android. I have no idea about iOS because I never had an iPhone.
I've had a few Apple products, and it does not work on iOS, unfortunately.
That doesn't surprise me. Apple's a little more stringent and charges a lot more money to allow developers to access their app store to begin with.
Yeah, stinkers. I would love to. Actually, well, maybe I could rerig one of my devices now. But interesting.
So I think it's a little bit odd. So the kill on the Asher in the center is definitely quite nice. If you win initiative, you're able to now really advance your knights up quite a bit, and really deny Q9 the ability to get back up on the high ground at all, because there just wouldn't be a ton of space that would be safe for the knights. I think Veggie probably has to throw order marker 1 on the Asher here and hope to win initiative, because if the knights get a full move closer to Q9, it's just going to be really difficult for him to have the space he needs to shoot up. So 3 order markers on knights, 1 on riflemen, and then Veggie split 2 and 2 again. I would guess that Veggie's order markers are the same as last round, which is 1 on Asher and then 2, 3 on Q9. That seems like your most effective way of creating a screen and then doing damage. But Vydar's going to get at least 2 knights adjacent to Q9 now. Or should be able to get at least 2 knights adjacent to Q9. If the first one, they'll both move through that opening to the right of the foremost Ashra, and then one of them can move down and left a space as well. On the right hand side, just like those 2 spaces to the northwest of Q9 can be filled, and probably almost certainly should be filled with knights. And there's the downside, like if one is on Asher are getting heighted attacks on you, but I think you just have to throw dice into Q9 every shot you get.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering.
There's just not a way around that.
Yeah, I mean, you're just gonna have to take that at some point. I'm almost wondering if going with rifleman turn 1 would have helped. I don't know. It's so this is what's going through my mind right now. You've got a pretty good numbers lead with Knights of Weston. Currently, it's 11 knights to 8 Ashra. And with most of your knights on height, and thus having like 5 defense against the Queglik's gun if it comes into play, I'm almost wondering if making attacks with riflemen would have been good early on. You don't get the map advantage that he's getting, and also, of course, as I say that, Captain Stupendous makes me look like a fool by getting 2 kills anyway on the Ashra.
Vydar, not.
Or sorry, Vydar.
Yes, Captain Stupendous is stupendous. I'm certain, but not here in this particular matchup.
Yes,
this certainly works out. I mean, I think it's tough to take turns on the riflemen after they're down to 2.
It's
like
true.
That.
Yeah.
Q9 having killed 1 really cripples them. Like their upside is killing 2 Ashra. Most of the time, they're probably just going to get 1, which is about what knights are going to get anyways.
Right.
Let's see. Veggie is so Veggie had 1 on Ashra, which makes a lot of sense. They take pretty good turn. Killed what is that? 2? Killed 2 out of 3 knights. Not bad. Now the knights are still going to be able to have 2 adjacent shots onto Q9 though. But both players are running out of squad figures at this point. They've been dropping pretty rapidly the last couple turns.
Right, yeah. We've now got, 2 full squads of both Ashra and Knights remaining.
I think there's 1 extra knight. I think there's 9 knights still.
1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, you're correct.
But Q9 is still woundless, which is a big boon for Veggie.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I suppose Gilbert's also woundless, but that doesn't matter nearly as much. So Gilbert is advancing around to the right. That makes some sense to me. I would say that the goal is probably to try and get a knight boosted by Gilbert onto Q9 on order marker 3. So if I'm veggie and I see that move, I'm pretty convinced that order marker 3 is in fact on knights and not on the rifleman, because otherwise I don't see why you would put Gilbert within Q9's quick X range if you weren't planning on using him for the attack aura boost. Maybe he's planning on hopping on Wannick instead, but I think that the extra die going into the Q9 is worth quite a lot as well. But Veggie has to be pretty worried about anytime someone's near Wannick, though, at this point. There just aren't a whole lot of figures that Veggie can afford to take off the board or wound from a Wannick hit.
Yeah. And as more of the Ashra fall, they'll just become more and more true. Hopefully, well, yeah, if Vydar's able to get some more Ashra to fall.
And sort of on the converse side of that, though, Vydar doesn't really care if Veggie hops onto Wannick. Like, a wound on Gilbert is pretty meaningless at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to all the other things that could happen. So we'll see, we got one heighted attack down on an Ashra.
3 skulls, monstrous attack. Oh, nice. Another
Wow.
Man.
So I feel like to this point, Veggie's had a lot more Ashra blanks than what the average die rolls would be. I have not been keeping accurate statistics. But, ooh, a 3 out of 3 into Q.
Yeah, that's nice. And
a wound does get through. So as we mentioned earlier, that is I believe 57.5 point life with the 230 point Q9 in this Delta format.
Just killed a squad of Ashra, just like that.
And the counterpunch from Q9 is about what you would expect Q9 to counterpunch quite well.
Oh, nice. I like going for that back one.
Yeah, that's definitely a nice pickup by Veggie there, because the forward knight can't actually engage Q9 without taking a leaving engagement, whereas that back knight with a single Gilbert extra move would be able to engage Q9 there.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see. I think that my guess would be that Gilbert moves into position to try and boost a knight attack going into Q9 here. I mean, if I'm Vydar at this point in the matchup, 5 Ashra aren't really scaring me. A 3 life Q9 is scaring me.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, this looks like exactly what we're seeing here. Like, I think if you're trying to assess what your win conditions here are, Q9 is going to obliterate your knights in another round if you can't get to him first. So let's see. Yeah, the knight on the far right. My guess is that one of those knights will hop on Wannick. The back one, the forward one, will come take a boosted shot on Gilbert. You'll probably take an attack with the other forward knight down. And then maybe move up a knight in the center to engage, like just straightforward 4 spaces to engage a couple of those Ashra, so that they're not free to move around to rescreen for Q9 next round. Okay, instead it looks like Vydar went to the glyph. Yeah, that also makes a lot of sense as a move.
Mm-hmm.
Hop around, try and get another knight adjacent to Q9.
And I who said Zawit probably wouldn't be used very much at the beginning of the game.
And oof, another Ashra blank.
So that's 4 blanks in a row, I think.
Yeah, the Ashra really have not been holding it together. And ooh, Q9 takes another one.
Dang, holy cow. So Half-Life Q9.
And the Wannick wound is going to end up having to be taken on an Ashra. Oh, 3 is on Ashra.
Oh, interesting.
That's kind of neat. I can't say I was expecting that, but I think it's going to work out pretty well. Because you're going to get an Ashra. So one Ashra probably moves forward to take heighted attack down on a knight.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to be able to do anything about Wannick Knight, for better or worse. Yeah, and then the other Ashra is just moving forward to stop the 2 knights from being able to join the party.
Which could be huge if that Ashra survives for a bit.
Could be. And, okay, 1 knight. And naturally the attack up goes through instead of the attack down, because math. And then, let's see.
Good old Heroscape math.
I'm certain that it doesn't work out that way more than half the time, but It certainly feels that way in terms of the way my brain decides to remember things. So let's see. I would expect that knight on the Zawit glyph to move as basically to the far bottom right as possible. Huh.
Oh, okay.
I wonder where that spot.
I guess he can rotate in.
But you could. So I don't love that spot because now you can only get 2 knights adjacent to Q9 if you win initiative instead of 3.
Right.
Because the knight on Wanik would have otherwise been able to fill into that spot. So I don't love that placement there. I think I would have rather seen that knight go into the extreme bottom right in the start zone, where you could move up behind Q9 just to get an extra knight there adjacent. Like if you're veggie, you have to put significant order marker investment on Q9. You've only got 3 Asher left. You're probably just going exclusively Q9 at this point, and throwing one extra attack at Q9 is just really good if you're Vydar at this point.
Yeah, you want as many as possible so you can keep getting those little chips in. You only need 2 more chips.
And even if none of the remaining knights were able to kill Asher here, those 2 Morgan's Riflemen versus 3 Asher is still a pretty favorable endgame. Especially if Gilbert can just tie up the Asher so that they can't run around. And Veggie somehow wins initiative with a 2, which is a fun piece you don't see all that often.
A feat of nature.
Ooh, a nice little attack down as well. So this was a risky order marker on the Asherah, but it's certainly working out well. And I think there's a pretty good argument that Veggie had to take the risk. Given that if the knights, like if Veggie loses initiative, Q9 is just surrounded by knights anyways. So I certainly understand that, why you would go for the higher variance play there, and it definitely works out. So now you've got, if Gilbert is able to kill the Asherah above him, then he'll be able to get knights through. But if that Asherah can roll just one shield, that's
all it takes.
Surely that Asherah can roll one shield. There you go. Good Asherah. Well done. And so now,
0 symbols.
Ooh, and no symbols. So you've got 4 knights at this point, and none of them can get to Q9 unless you take a disengage, which you may have to. I think at this point you're definitely considering the risk of a disengage from that 1 Asherah to try and get the Gilbert boosted attack on Q9. Because I just, if you don't do it this turn, Q9 is going to be able to back up significantly.
Right.
And now you've got 2 knights tied up to an Asher on height in the center.
Which feels bad.
Pretty bad spot to be in. So I think if you're Vydar here, you probably have to take the disengage to get that southernmost knight south 1 more space.
Right. Well, and now I'm kind of wondering, and part of this is just how it worked out, but I'm wondering if almost, engaging with Gilbert, since he can take the disengagement strike, and just to try to hold Q9 there, would have been beneficial, potentially? I don't know.
Maybe. I think that's actually a pretty good idea. And beyond that, well, Q9 might back up anyways.
Right, at that point.
But that forces him to take a leaving engagement, which is definitely good for you. Because what Q9 really doesn't want to do is sit there and have to throw 3 Queglex into Gilbert.
Right, exactly.
That's just a very, very wasted turn. But Veggie had a second one on the Asherah.
Holy cow, and that is...
And they are
very
wiping the knights off the board.
Man. 3 for 3 there.
So going into this round, Veggie had just 3 Asherah left and believed in them a lot and believed in their ability to suddenly roll shields, and it has paid off.
And
so just like that, there is 1 knight now on the board. Well, that quickly took a major turn in Veggie's favor. So now Gilbert will take the LEA. And we'll see
going for Q9, just trying to get that Q9 kill.
Yeah, I would certainly throw it. And that's a nice roll.
Oh, man.
Ooh, and a better block.
Man.
Big.
I was so excited there for a second.
Q9 laughs at the puny knight. with the
Puny
sword
attack
and the
of 3.
flag. And but the Asherah does whiff it on height.
All right.
Is that knight is now freed up.
Major
So
Q9.
if you're Q9 here, I think you're just throwing dice at Gilbert. It's very unlikely that other knight will be able to engage you, no matter where you go. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's 7 move to get there. So Gilbert has to hit at least 3 symbols on the dispatch. And if you do disengage and walk away, Gilbert will be able to re-engage with you anyways. So I don't think there's much benefit in backing up here or taking the LEA to move away. I mean, if you are able to kill the knight, then you probably burn an order marker, which is some benefit. But I feel like the disengage is too risky on Q9 at this point.
Yeah,
Because I'm not sure that I don't think there's a place you can put Q9 to Quiglex into the knight that doesn't then give Gilbert a heighted attack. Or at least I'm not finding any because of where that ruin is placed at.
Mm-hmm.
And so if the attack doesn't go through, giving Gilbert that heighted attack, and if it doesn't go through, the knight's then able to engage you as well. So I think just staying roughly where you are and shooting Gilbert is basically the only option.
Yeah, I'm not seeing anything else there. I think that makes a lot of sense to just.
Yeah, and so Veggie does just stay. Let's see what Gilbert's able to block.
2.
It's a nice final attack there.
Mm-hmm.
Whew, okay.
Right, 3 wounds, not bad, not bad.
It's getting closer. Then we'll see Gilbert gets one more shot at Q9.
Just needs to 3 for 3 again. Easy.
And have Q9, not be Q9.
Truth.
One skull is pretty rarely going to do anything to the big shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
And now is the time to hope that you are able to roll 3 symbols. Huh.
Wait,
I wonder if their decision was that he didn't have line of sight to the knight.
Oh, maybe.
But I feel like the sword was sticking out enough. Because you don't need to have line of sight. It doesn't have to be a hit zone. It just has to be to the figure.
Mm-hmm.
They must have ruled. So I'm pretty sure they're on the voice chat. So they must have ruled that he didn't have line of sight there. But it feels kind of iffy to me. I think Gilbert would be able to see part of that knight.
Yeah, I would have at least drawn a line to see. Cause I think that one you'd have a pretty good case for seeing the sword.
Well, that is the round. So if you are Vydar, so there's definitely some interesting watermark decisions I'd say on both parts because all the squads are partial.
Mm-hmm.
Veggie is just going to roll with Q9, and Vydar is running with Rifleman.
All right.
I'm curious to see if 1 is on the knights because a Gilbert boosted attack into Q9 is just quite good and maybe worth the risk of losing initiative.
Right. And you're not too worried about Q9 disengaging and just attacking the knight, I think.
Yeah, Q9 would have to kill Gilbert within 2 rolls and then kill the knight on a 3v5. So I don't think you have that high of a risk of losing the order marker. So I'm definitely curious. I think I would have put the 1 on knights, though, if I was Vydar. I think the upside is just vastly in favor of doing that.
Plus, you get to tie up Q9 as your rifleman attack as well. So,
yeah, without a doubt. So let's see. I mean, Veggie's certainly thinking about disengaging here.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I guess if you see order markers on riflemen, I was wondering if you run away to delay it a little bit, but I guess he's probably guessing.
So you could have. This is an interesting decision because if it is on knights, then that knight is now able to get height onto Q9.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not entirely sure what the benefit was of moving up now. I mean, certainly you get closer to the rifleman, but you outrange the rifleman anyways.
Right.
And so Vydar didn't have it on knights, so it works out. But I feel like the order marker one needed to be on knights there if you're Vydar. But we'll see. Maybe the riflemen are able to put massive pings down on Q9 and just kill them.
2 attacks of 4, it's not totally far-fetched. Okay, never mind. It was pretty far-fetched.
And those were some bad Q9 rolls too.
Yeah.
That was some well-timed lack of shooting ability on the part of the rifleman. So Q's going to get up on better height now and just try to Quiglex them into non-existence. I mean, if you're Veggie at this point, you have to be pretty happy about the situation. You've got pretty good odds of killing at least one of those riflemen, and then you've got Q9 versus just 2 single squad figures if you can pull that off. I would think, yeah, you just Quiglex on the even ground one as many times as you can. And it only took 1.
How many Quiglexes does it take to get to the center of a Morgan's rifleman?
Apparently 1. And yeah, I mean, this is if you're Veggie, you've got to be pretty happy with this general state of the board at this point in time. You know.
Yeah. Q9.
The rifleman, 1 rifleman. But we'll see. Crazier things have happened.
It's true. I've seen 11 defense blink, so it's definitely possible that he blinks against 2 skulls here. No.
Nope, and it is blocked quite well by Veggie.
And then moves with the hit and run power. Get to see that come into play.
Yeah, I think this is the first time that we've actually been able to observe that. And
Q9's like,
yeah, so
that's okay. I'll just Wannock.
Q9 hops onto Wannock, which makes a ton of sense. And basically says, okay, if you can't kill me on the next turn, you're dead. So the rifleman has been taunted. Now we shall see if the rifleman can live up to the taunt.
Well, to be fair, it's only a 95% chance that he dies from it.
This is a 95. I do tend to try and get better than 5% chances of winning. And 4 for 4.
Oh, whoa! Holy cow. Okay, so...
Well, the rifleman lived up to the taunt.
Yeah. Wow,
that's something you don't see very often.
Yeah. And so now, that was the end of the round. So... Wow.
And
wow,
if you're yeah, that wow, just like that, you go from no chance to basically having won the game. Because the Ashura, even if Veggie had 1 initiative there, which he didn't, the Ashura can't get adjacent.
And
that
hit
first
and run
move
is so strong against melee figures when they're trying to catch you.
Yes, very much.
Yep, there's the hit.
That's the first one.
So does Veggie chase, or should Veggie just like hop on Wannock and
I think you chase if you're Veggie, because you can always you chase to a place where you can get back to Wannock.
That makes sense.
At the end of the round later on. There's no reason to take the shots from height in the short term. Yeah. And if the rifleman runs down onto Wannock, you're pretty happy because then you can engage him and attack. And in melee, you have the advantage.
Yeah.
So I like this.
And that's a good move because that forces
recovery.
Yeah, that'll keep the rifleman from using hit and run because it'll make him move first.
Yeah, definitely.
1, 2, 3, 4. Okay.
And the rifleman just stays out of range of the Ashura.
Yeah, good placement there. And takes it.
Oh, with another blank from the Ashura.
Holy cow. So,
well, if Heroscape had win probability charts posted on the map during the game, you would have seen some serious spiking of Veggie's win probability over the last 2 minutes here.
I mean,
I'll
be honest. I I misremembered this game. I was talking before we started the game about how earlier this week I actually casted a game that I had misremembered the winner, and it happened again. I actually thought Veggie won this game.
Oh, nice.
That was
well,
good though.
I think Veggie certainly had reason to believe that he would win the game, up until that magnificent blank from Q9. I don't think there's really anything different that Veggie would probably do in hindsight over those last couple rounds either. Just sometimes the attack magically goes through.
Yeah, no, it's true, and like, I mean, attacks of 4 are always scared to Q9. I feel like, at least when I'm playing Q9, I'm always scared of scared. The attacks of 4 always scare me because that is where things can happen. You're not always expecting, two hits in one go though. But man, yeah, that was huge, and just like that, turned around. Wow.
So in honor of Veggie's Q9 biting the dust, I will use Veggie's app to figure out what the probability of that happening was.
Nice.
So the probability of getting 2 wounds or better on a 4v7 is 3.11%.
Holy cow, 3.11.
So yeah, if you're watching this at home, that doesn't happen very often.
Nope.
But in terms of the map itself, I think that Vydar did use Zowit pretty well on the whole. I think there's a few times I would have made slightly different spots with where the knights went to off of it, but the only times that I noticed a spot where I might have done something different, I think Veggie won initiative anyways, so it wouldn't have mattered because the knight would have gotten tied up. Wannick was certainly a focal point, which makes a lot of sense given the matchup as it exists and the lack of Wannick soaks in Veggie's army.
Yeah, getting those pings each round. I think he had it almost every round, if not every round. But yeah, those pings hitting the Ashra and keeping him from having to kill those with knights, that was super nice for him.
Yeah, I think Vydar did a very good job of alternating order markers there, using the riflemen at very strategic points to make sure that those attacks got through. In this format with the Delta points, I like both these armies a lot. I mean, 4x Knights Gilbert is just strong in basically any format. But it's definitely, I shouldn't say definitely, but I think it's probably the top bonding army that was possible to bring, bonding melee that was possible in this format. Or certainly of the ones that we saw, it certainly played the best. In terms of Veggie's army, I mean, I like the concept. It's basically you have 2 components, and one component is amazing against melee, and the other component is amazing against almost everything. So it's hard to argue with those 2 components. I definitely like the army construction here. I ended up playing both of these players in the tournament, so I got a chance to play against both of the armies. Both were I think both were certainly very well constructed in terms of taking advantage of the Delta points to the best of their abilities for those figures. But I thought this was a really cool event in general. I mean, most of the armies that you saw in the playoffs were based around still top figures at a higher point cost. I mean, here obviously Knights, Q9. The army that I ran was built around Quahan, which was expensive, but still ended up being worth her points by a lot. But then again, you also got to see some really cool niche armies that had their points lowered and became more viable. So, for instance, of the armies that made the playoffs, Sir Artorius ended up making it through to, I believe, the semifinals with the army of the Tagawa Samurai Archers X6, the Kazuki Samurai, and the one, the only Hatamoto Taro, who, unless you're OEAO, you don't generally have that figure ranked as in your top tier figures in your power rankings. But it was kind of cool to see sort of the really wide range of armies that were able to be competitive just by having sort of the points altered. Like, are Tagawa Samurai Archers good? No. Are they good when their points drop and everybody else's points go up? Yeah, they become a lot better.
Yeah.
So it was kind of cool to watch some of those armies play out. I actually watched a matchup in this event where the Tagawa Samurai faced the Knights army and defeated it quite soundly, just because they had, the map was definitely in the Archers' favor by a significant margin in that particular matchup. But beyond that, there's a lot more of the Archers than there were of the Knights. And it really allows, just the sheer numbers allowed you can have a lot worse units ending up beating better units. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a really cool aspect of the format for sure. I'm glad that they ran it.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of fun looking at the armies, watching the matchups I was able to catch, seeing stuff like Grox being used and winning some games. I don't think they did like stellar, but
Yeah, I can't say the Grok armies were good. I watched a few of those games as well, and my conclusion was that Groks are bad at any point total, and that the point total is just pretty irrelevant. Like
fair.
the 3 defense squads are just not worth. I mean, maybe if they were like 40 or 50 points or something, but yeah, even at a significantly lowered points, the Groks were still just not good in general.
It's true. They did win. I know they won at least one game that I watched. Those that was pretty exciting.
Well, that's more than they would have in a normal format, probably.
It's true. That's true. Hey, I've gone 3-1 with Grox before, but that's because I also had Romans and Raylan. So.
Well, yes, that would help.
And it was a casual tournament, and I can list a lot of other things that were going in my favor, but still. But no, it was really cool to see it all go out. I'm pretty sure they'll be trying it again. I know Doc has at least been talking about making some changes to the point totals. And
yeah, I'm quite sad about that. The army I ran, Doc now made it so that it's not viable anymore. So I don't appreciate that too much. Thanks, Doc.
Got to nerf Chris Perkins, not the army. That's.
But in seriousness, no, I think I know Doc did do a lot of updates after the tournament to the rankings, and from what I read, I think they were all pretty strong across the board. Spiders got increased, which made sense and should have happened. Mara Warriors got increased a little bit. A few other things got decreased that had been a little bit overcosted. I think Mach might have been one of the figures that got their points decreased. I'm not 100% sure on that. It was some huge C3V figure. I think it was Mach, but it might have been somebody else.
I'm pretty sure it was Mach because the Axe Grinders got a pretty big increase, which basically made Mach unusable. Yeah,
that makes some sense. So I think Mach got dropped a little bit. But yeah, if they run it again, I think it'd be fun again. Mm-hmm. It's a little bit more effort to figure out what your army is, because you do have to learn entire new point totals for basically everything if you're trying to figure out the format. Right. But at the same time, it also makes it a lot easier. If you don't want to go through that effort, you can just say, like, I want to play X squad, and then just build the best army out of it for whatever the point totals are. So that's definitely an easier way to approach it if that's the goal. And so in that regard, it definitely makes a lot of figures playable, and at least you have a chance to win most of the games with pretty much any of the squads that aren't named Grox.
Even Templar Cavalry.
Okay, maybe there's 2 squads that are still too bad. But pretty much everything else.
Truth. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, no, it was a fun tournament, fun event. I'm looking forward to when they do it again. I think it was a lot of fun to watch. This this Delta event and then the V Cheese event are both very unique, I think, in allowing players to, well, let's see. Just the standard bring one stuff isn't used as much in online Heroscape. There's usually some kind of bring two or reverse draft or something like that. And so it is pretty interesting to see the bring one format and how those metas shape out.
Yeah, I've been enjoying the overall research into that in general. Like a couple of the most recent couple live events have also been sort of bring ones. Like they've been a different approach. So they were banning a certain set of figures, but it was still, the general idea behind all of them, as far as I can gather, is just here's a bring one format where we've done something to throw off the meta so that it's not super clear immediately what the best army is. Mm-hmm. And I've definitely been enjoying that a lot. It's been fun to sort of go back to bring one type builds, just because they hadn't been used very much in a while.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to see how it shapes out. I think you're seeing a lot of interesting, especially with VC included. You see a lot of interesting VC interactions because, I mean, like they've said, I guess a lot about the V Cheese events. You know how Classic works out, but there's a lot of VC there's a lot that's known. But there's also still a lot that's just still theorized because it hasn't been tested in bring one events, and so it's cool to see that get a chance to.
Yeah, especially with the Delta point totals. Like one of probably the biggest sort of surprise in my and at least some people's eyes, I'd say, was Ritakshi's performance in the Raylan Ritakshi Hive Drudge army that Boromir was running, which did quite well and made finals. And it was kind of cool to see Ritachi actually become viable and seem like a strong figure with the Drudge. So that was kind of a neat effect that probably wouldn't have happened otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's nice to sort of uncover some of those C3V figures that might be better than we thought.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's really cool. I'm excited to see what the future holds. It'll be great. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me for this game, Chris. This is a good one. I was very surprised by the outcome because I didn't remember correctly who won the game, but it was a good one. I really enjoyed this game.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me, and congratulations to Vydar is the man for winning it, and condolences to Veggie for the 3% outcome. But to both, well played. It was a fun game to watch. So thanks to both those players for that, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. It's always good to have you on. Before we sign off, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Well, probably most listeners who are listening know about it already, but just in case anyone doesn't, want to highlight something that Matthias was running for Gen Con, which isn't Gen Con, but if anyone is looking to so let me back that up a little bit. One of the things that Gen Con is trying to support this year, because Gen Con is very different in person, is pop-up Gen Con events. So like friendly local gaming stores just like organizing some sort of event somewhat nearish to when Gen Con was going to happen and having it there. Gen Con's been encouraging that a lot, and I know that Matthias and some of the other organizers from Heroscape Gen Con have said that they're trying and willing to provide sort of prize support for anyone who's able to organize a Heroscape tournament as a Gen Con pop-up event. So if anyone is interested or looking to try and run some sort of Heroscape event around the Gen Con timeframe, which is early-ish September, I would encourage them to look around on the forums or on the Gen Con forums to see what's been posted there, to see what sort of prize support or other help might be available. It'd be cool to see a couple of those pop-up events happen around the country, maybe in places where they don't normally have regular events. So yeah, just a shout out to that. And if you are interested in hosting something, I'd suggest looking on the Gen Con forums on Heroscapers and seeing what's there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's great. That's it's a really cool thing that Matthias is doing to help support that. And yeah, I'm looking forward to see what they've got for people. It's always really cool to see little events pop up all over the place. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, yeah, thanks again so much for joining, Chris. Thank you, viewers, of course, for viewing. Everybody, remember what a beautiful world it is that we live in. And this will be 10 points under and out.